never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my baby, I make plans for 7:45, and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Good evening, folks. How are you? It's another Monday. It's another CFN Live. Thrilled to have you all here. We do have lots to get to tonight, and it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be a lot of discussion. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you folks think and hearing your input. As I said, there's a lot of really cool things that I was able to download, and I want to bring to your attention, because there's certain things that, you know, maybe you don't know, maybe you do know, maybe you'd like others to share like I do, and just be in the know. But as I said, there is lots going on in our community, but needless to say, it is an honor to have you folks here each and every Monday as you are. Stephen, nice to see you, my friend. What's up, Steve? Speaking of Steve, did you see some of the edits this guy's been doing, especially the Halloween one? Oh, boom! Out of the park. Unreal. Steve, we are honored to have you a part of our community, dude. Keep up the great work. You truly support and promote our community in a way that I always envisioned, but I just don't have the time as much as I used to, and you certainly have done a fantastic job picking up the slack. So a big shout out to Steve. Rob, how you doing, my friend? Eve's in the house. Always a pleasure to see you as well, Eve. Lloyd's here. Hello, Lloyd. All the way, you guys, Rob and Lloyd, all the way out from Saskatchewan. Honor having you. What's going on, Fernando? Always a pleasure to have you as well. Tony, this weekend, I am heading up to Spanish. I'm going to be hooking up with Danny Bacon. So I will be bringing your prints that far. Hopefully we can hook up and I will get you your prints. So stay tuned to that. We'll be in touch. Oh, Steve, no, absolutely. Jason Barnucz isn't. You must be heading over to the Barnucz's family to celebrate Trevor's birthday. No, I'm just kidding. Big shout out. Happy birthday. Happy 17th birthday to Trevor. Jay's going to be busy tonight celebrating along with the rest of the family. Joe Vitani's in the house. How you doing, my friend? Yeah, it is. But needless to say, yes, there is lots to get to, lots to discuss. So I want to skim over some of the important stuff real quickly, because we just sometimes don't say it enough. And regardless of how many people are watching with us right now, I do know that a lot of folks go back and watch this periodically throughout the week. So again, big shout out. Thank you to our good friend, Richard Dunlop, who is organizing the swag. And things are going very, very well. I'm not actually sure how many we've sold of these, but quite a few. So big shout out to Richard Dunlop for organizing all this. And if you want one just like this, that has your name on the back, by all means, reach out to Richard Dunlop. He has all the prices, and he will make sure whatever it is that catches your eye will be in the mail sooner than later. So a big shout out to Richard for that. Of course, the date has been announced for our upcoming CFN retreat 2025 at Horwood Lake Lodge. That's everything you need to know. That is the new price. As I said, remarkable that Horwood has been able to keep it at the price that it was for so long, for the 6 years that we've been going up. In the 7th year, with everything else going up, you can totally understand how it can't be remaining the same, and totally understand. As I said, it was just a matter of time, really waiting to find out how long it would take before we had to see a pay increase or cost increase, because we know it's costing Horwood. So please, if you are interested, there's quite a few people that are already booked. So make sure you don't delay. Get a hold of Warren, get a hold of Doris. That's the phone number. That's the email. That is the source in order to get your butt booked in a bid for next year's 7th annual. Seven years we've been doing. 7 years at Horwood Lake Lodge. Looking forward to seeing you all. And of course, we will also be getting to the announcement about Camp McIntosh and what's coming up for that. Big shout out to our good buddy Walt for designing this logo that the good folks, the great folks over at Camp McIntosh are really thrilled to see. But if you want a chance of catching one of these 4 species and even some more, we'll be announcing that date very, very soon. But it is basically, I think, the 3rd weekend in September. But we will get those dates up. In the meantime, if you are looking to possibly book a stay at Camp McIntosh, Andre and Tracy are looking forward to your call. Perhaps, your timeline, your schedule is booked. You can't get up for our 4th annual OFC Nation retreat, but you'd like to go up throughout the year, maybe during Walleye opener. That's all the information that you need to know. So please reach out to the good folks at Camp McIntosh. They are looking forward to your call. A couple other things that I wanted to bring to your attention. This, of course, was shared by George Morgan. This is a really unique opportunity. Looking for your input, your feedback, your involvement in some of the stewardship, some of the things that are going to be going forward when it comes to our fishery. And George, I really appreciate you sharing this with me. This is an invitation for an aquatic research workshop that will be delivered in hybrid format at Carleton University and online via Zoom. We are fortunate that there are many students and professors conducting research on the lakes and rivers, South Central and Eastern Ontario. This is a forum for those research to share their findings with lake associations, environmental managers, anglers, and other interested parties. This is free, and the invitation can be shared with others, although they must register to obtain the agenda and Zoom link. In-person space is limited, but the more the merrier on Zoom. We have 25 speakers lined up from 6 different universities to share their latest research on water quality, recreational fishery science, shoreline development, aquatic weed control, and more. There will be an opportunity to ask questions, share your perspectives about future research and the needs of the issues that concern you. There is a link. We will be sharing it throughout the week. But if you are interested in becoming a part of this, basically the scope of management and the findings through which a lot of our biologists and, of course, special interest groups have been working on, I think this is a great opportunity to get to know it, especially if you're in that area, get to know about your fishery. So stay tuned for that. One other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, of course, is we're hoping to have Andy and Moose on here to talk about the upcoming Ultimate Ice Fishing Show that is happening November 23rd and 24th up in Barrie. Looking forward to the new venue. They have had it up there before, so it's not necessarily new to the Ice Fishing Show, but it is certainly new to some people who perhaps have not attended the Ice Fishing Show. But it's right up in the heartland of ice fishing in Ontario, and we are looking forward to that. Of course, we have many announcements that we have been making in regards to the Niagara Show, the Chatham Show, and of course, the Kitchener Show. Stay tuned to the dates. We have not announced any of the dates as of right now, but if you want to participate as a vendor or maybe just be a spectator and part of the audience, we'd love to have you there. Either way, get in touch with Brad at the Made in Canada Tackle Show and Marketplace, and we will certainly point you in the right direction and offer you an opportunity to vend when perhaps some vendors don't just get that opportunity, whether it's not feasible. We're trying to give folks that opportunity to have, or at least promote themselves in a venue that is affordable. And this isn't to take away from anything that Andy and Kyle or anybody else is doing when it comes to the big shows, because we just can't compete. There's no way. What the Toronto Sportsman Show does, what the Spring Fishing and Boat Show does, and of course CanCast, these are elite shows. These are remarkable shows. A lot of work goes into these shows. What we're trying to do is just provide some of you littler vendors an opportunity to have that same similar stage. A couple other things I want to mention too. This came across my news feed today. Fishpost.ca. This is really interesting. It's basically a buy and sell venue, website, Facebook page, where you can go and you can find some pretty good deals on some available equipment, some available tackle, as it says here, boats, kayaks, fly fishing, ice fishing trips. This is brand new. It's absolutely brand new, and they've been following us. They gave us a like today, and I was interested to find out a little bit more. I went to the website, and as I said, it's a buy and sell. It's basically a fishing version of Kijiji, and then some. So, and they also have a contest, which I was really thrilled to see. Our very own Brooklyn Hyben was a winner. And she won this photo during their Canada Day celebration. So a big shout out to Brooklyn for winning this. And of course, for these folks over here at fishpost.ca, give them a like, give them a view, and hopefully there's something there for you. It is right around Christmas, right around the corner. So as I said, if you're looking for that something that is perhaps not available at the store because it's a little bit older, you want something that's a little bit more feasible and reasonable in price, head on over there. As I said, it was really, really interesting to see. So I invite you to have a look-see, and see if there's anything that tweaks your interest. I want to bring in Jim as, you know what? Why don't we do it right now, right after his intro?
When he was born, he tried to reel in the umbilical cord. Bass named him as their personal best. His power pole came with a stripper. Forward-facing sonar uses him to find fish. Chuck Norris is his co-angler. He is the most interesting fisherman in the world. Stay fishing, my friends.
And he's become invisible. There he is. There he is.
How could this be invisible?
How you doing, Jim?
I'm alive.
Attaboy. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
I'm going to officially be having a sale. I'm not fishing anymore. I've been gathering up all my stuff out of the garage. I'm putting it all out on tables. $5 a piece after the weekend.
Oh, yes. You did share that with me.
I can't fish. I don't know how to catch fish anymore. Apparently, it's what it is. I had a guy come to me. He says to me, "How are you doing today?" I said, "Do I look happy?" Like I give him like the Al Bundy, you know, "Do I look happy?" And he says to me, "Jimmy," he says, "I got here. I fished Friday afternoon, all day Saturday, and I'm fishing here right now. It's like 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon." I says, "How have you done?" He says, "I caught a 14-inch pike on Friday afternoon."
Wow.
How can that happen in this lake?
Wow.
How can this lake go to sleep like that?
No kidding.
The water temperature is like 52, you know, so they're long from gone, you know, they're long from gone. Like there's something going on. A lot of the weeds are laying on the bottom early, but I mean, you know, the lake, it's not that big.
Yeah.
They, you know, they can't get away from you. They didn't know. Some guy says, "Oh, I saw there was a lot of herons this year." Well, the herons didn't eat all the 5-pound bass. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's just, I don't know.
No, and I'd be interested to know, are other people who frequent a certain body of water, are you having issues catching fish? Like, have they turned off? I have to say, Jim, based on the news feed, I see a lot of folks still catching fish.
Oh,
not necessarily.
They were rocking and rolling two weekends ago.
Yeah,
they were rocking and rolling. Anybody went out to the lake with a jig and threw it in a weed bed, caught a 4-pounder.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Anyways,
thanks for sharing that. That's the link if you guys want to register. Thanks, George, for sharing that with us. As I said, we will share it throughout the week, but it seems like a very informative question and answer session. We're going to find out a lot about the fishery out your way, Jim. And it's just a great opportunity for anglers to get involved and be able to ask questions about their body of water, perhaps maybe, the vision that our biologists have when it comes to research. So yeah, very, very cool. Very, very, very cool. Something that was very cool, Jim. And of course, I don't know that you still fish with 2-piece rods, but if you did.
No, closest I got to a 2-piece rod, in fact.
Yeah.
It's right there. I brought it in for the sale. No, it's just kidding.
Interesting. So one of the things that I have to say,
PLX telescopic.
I've seen rod ties. We've seen the rod ties, and they work really, really well. But this is a Canadian company. It's called the Rod Caddy. And Jim, have a look at this.
They've been around forever. Yeah.
The Rod Caddy. I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Are you tired of tangled lines and broken rod tips when transporting your 2-piece rods? Check out the Rod Caddy. So simple, it's brilliant. First, break down your rod. Then, reel in any excess line. Insert the bottom barrel. Then, the top barrel. And within seconds, your rod's protected, hands-free, and tangle-free. Whether land or sea, hiking or biking, protect your rod today and get yourself a Rod Caddy.
That was a little bit different from the other ones.
Okay. And the thing I love about it is it's Canadian.
It might be the same people. Maybe they just changed up, because this is way better than the ones I saw before.
Yeah, and it seems so straightforward. But again, support local. They are a Canadian company. But nonetheless, definitely for someone like me who still carries a lot of 2-piece rods, I tell you, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
So I am in mourning though. I lost my 3-year-old TN.
Oh,
I got bit off for it.
Oh no.
So that's why I'm starting to drain the lake tonight. As soon as I'm done here, and I'm going to find that pike with that lure in its mouth.
That was your favorite lure.
You know how many fish I've caught with that thing?
I know.
I just changed the hooks, and it was so funny. I went to deep water, the one spot in the lake at the far end. It's deep there by the big rock.
Yeah.
And it's not the only spot, but it's the one where there's fish. And I was just letting the TN go to the bottom. I lifted it up about 3 or 4 feet, reeled down to it, let it just rattle, let it go down, lift it up, let it go down. And I lifted it up and I let it go down. And when I went to lift it up again, there was nothing there.
Hey.
It was gone. I didn't, it was gone. It just touched it. So I reel in the line. I'm looking at Jeff. He looks at me. He goes, "What happened? You could bit off?" I said, "Yeah." And there was places on the line. When you get plastic or something, you shave it and it makes little curls.
Yep.
Where the teeth had cut along the fluorocarbon, but not gone through because it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
There was 4 or 5 of those on each side along, and then there was a long sliver of line. Like pike's teeth, you have no concept how sharp they are.
Well,
that was just from impact. That wasn't me setting the hook.
I was going to ask you that because there are times when you don't necessarily even feel the tap. All of a sudden, there's just like a little bit of weight. Not even that.
That was a long way away.
Yeah.
I had it on 20-pound Mastiff, and I was letting it rip as far as I could because that's what I wanted for this hole. And this was the place where my memories came up on my Facebook.
Yeah.
On November 3rd, 4 years ago, Dave Chong and I absolutely clubbed them all around that hole in the weeds adjacent to it, up against the rock, a little further out into the deeper water. When I say deeper, it's not deeper. It's just further out.
Mm-hmm.
They're like you'd come up with 2 pieces of weed.
Yeah.
And whoever got the weed would point with the rod where it came from, and the other person would throw over there and they'd get a bite because they're hanging on whatever little pieces of stuff that was out there, right? Mm-hmm. But they were aggressive as heck, these pike. We caught a few nice ones. I went to a part of the lake. I never brought you through the little channel, where it's just the width of the boat and it's like 30 feet deep.
No.
I brought Jeff through that part of the channel, and I went on a point where Gord Routcliffe and I caught all the big fish that time.
Yeah.
And I throw in Uh, I throw in one of Vic Morris's from Pro Water there. He got his new stick bait out.
Yep.
And it has a molded in ring in it. So when you hook it in, when you set the hook, it doesn't pull off, eh? So it's awesome. And I looked at Jeff, I said, hey, I can't get bid on anything else. I throw it, I got the weed mark perfect. The weed comes out, we're looking at it, the weed comes out, it's 15 feet deep, and the weed's like 9 feet high, and it just goes like this down into 26 feet of water.
Interesting.
And I threw it right out on the edge of it. It's sinking down. I see the line just jump, and I got about a 5-pound pike.
Jim,
and of course, he comes in the boat because it's just a jig head with a hook, or a little jig with the stick worm on it, so I don't get off. So, but
now were you marking fish?
no, you could never. I don't believe
Okay,
half the units when you see fish anyway.
gotcha.
It's not like forward-facing sonar. Yeah, I saw a lot of panfish. You could see them. I mean, in that back bay, that back part of Morton Bay, everywhere there was a drop of even like from 9 to 12 feet on the drop, it was all full of marks. And those are panfish. But last weekend, we didn't see any panfish. Today or yesterday, there was panfish everywhere.
Really?
Right up on the surface, like in the summertime.
Wow.
Mind you, it was glass calm. I mean, glass calm and bright sun. So I'm thinking it's the old, what do you call them there? The algae and that grow on the top and whatever that they come up and eat. All the little
Zooplankton, yeah.
bits there. This
Mhm.
plankton.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. They're up there eating plankton because it was happening again because of the heat from the sun and the water being dead calm. In the afternoon, the water had gone up to, I think it had gone up to 54.8 on the surface. So it went up like 2 to 3 degrees in 4 hours.
Incredible.
And we went out, yeah. So
Something
but
else.
this-
Sorry, something else that I saw that came up in the news feed along with the rod caddy. This is a really easy gadget to install on your rod, and for someone like yourself who loves using crankbaits, I think this is just brilliant. Don't know what it costs. I believe it's an American-made product, but either way, brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, I've been using things just like that for years.
Yeah.
In fact, the last time I got them was about 4 years ago at the Toronto Sportsman Show, and Jasper at ProJ was there, and I said to him, I said, "You got any of those little things?" It was because what rod was it? I think it was X Brides, or one of the rods that we make didn't have the little keeper.
Okay.
So we used to put one on. But something I used to do years ago, Scotty, and it's funny, this rod just happened to be here. Now you see that they've got they always have, well, not always, but a lot of times they have the little thing here you can put your line on too. But what I do is I take, there's pull ties for holding wire.
Mhm.
You can buy those
Yep.
in the electrical department, and
Yep.
I put them on and they've got that hole.
Yep.
And I had this on this rod. This is a rod that I used to use for Carolina rigging. And because I had the long leader off the braid,
Mhm.
I could, like when the rod's out, it would come down. You needed a little extra when you broke the rod down.
Yeah.
It had to come back to here. And I knew roughly in my mind how much line I needed that I could put the hook here and then reel the reel down tight with the rod down. And I used to use these, and I picked that up in the garage. You can buy 10 of them for about $3.49.
Brilliant.
There's some stuff on it. Coolest little thing. And if you want to get one of those, that attaches on here. And
Well, I love the fact that it's got it's magnetic. So
Yeah,
if
that's
you
pretty
have
cool.
multiple trebles, like they will still adhere, even if it's not clipped in, it'll still adhere to that
stick
little
to the
gadget.
plates in my head, though. If I was carrying a bunch of rods, my head had gone. Actually, it doesn't stick because they're stainless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very,
Ever
very
since the
true.
accident,
Like, oh, so funny. Jim, also, one other thing I wanted to, and again, everybody has their techniques for filleting. But I noticed this technique, and I can honestly say I've never used it, but it seems so simple. I know some folks will question, how do you know where you are with your knife? Perhaps maybe some folks, they're going to adopt this because, and the key to everything is having a very sharp knife. But I was just mesmerized watching this guy fillet in sea trout.
Flaying up some old sparkle trout.
Boy, I saw this. See how sharp the knife is?
Yeah. Like, look at that. Like, zoom.
When I see guys filleting a fish and they're like this, I want to go over and just smack them in the back of the head.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I can fillet bluegills and crappies and smaller fish fast. Yeah, that's
brilliant.
Sharp knife is a godsend, right?
But so I'm interested to know, does anybody else fillet their fish like this? Because to me, it just seems so straightforward. Now, some might say, well, you're losing a lot of meat doing it that way.
Maybe it's that specific fish. I think that's a sea trout, eh?
That is a sea trout. It is a sea trout. But I'm thinking of, bass, even walleye for that matter. I would say a very similar pattern in terms of how you fillet that fish, but I've never seen it done like that. Very interesting.
Hey, it just dawned on me. Remember we were talking before we went on about the fish that were really good to eat?
Oh, yes.
It's a cobia.
Cobia.
Because the day that I caught sea trout, I caught cobia. That's why it came to my mind.
Interesting.
Just had to shake it loose.
Now, of course, there was an announcement made by Bass. I know, and I know you haven't necessarily had a chance to read up on it.
Yeah, a bit, but not enough.
I wanted to share the announcement. I didn't do an edited version, so it wasn't the whole 7 minutes or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Just to get to the key points. But I'd be interested to hear your take on how this is going to pan out for the 2025 season. I've heard varying different versions of people's opinions. It seems very positive when you hear the announcement, but I know some folks would suggest otherwise. But we'll just have a listen to what I edited up, and this is courtesy, of course, of Bass.
Well, hi, and welcome to the Bassmaster Studios. I am Tommy Sanders, here to address the news of the day, and it's actually breaking news, and it's big news as well. And to help roll it out right now, let's get right to it. Let's bring in, of course, the man who has served for many, many years as the contact point between Bassmaster Elite Series anglers and the BASS organization, and of course, one of the most decorated pro anglers of all time, Davey Height. And Davey, well, let's not beat around the bush. Let's get right to it. This big news is no entry fees for the Bassmaster Elite Series 2025.
Tournament fishing has been a sport, but now we can say this is a professional sport. Our top level anglers do not pay to play the game anymore. This is incredible news.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of the particulars, and for that we go back to the press release. BASS is increasing its contribution of payouts to over $4.1 million, which the league has identified as a sustainable model. Now, of course, in the past, it's been a similar contribution from both BASS and the anglers through the entry fees, and now Bass is taking over that with that $4.1 million. And of course, when we talk about these numbers that are coming up here, we are talking about net numbers, providing for the now situation where you don't have to do an entry fee, and the Elite Series payouts will be the same for the top 10 anglers as it was in 2024, with first place continuing to receive $100,000. Payouts for 11th through 18th are increased. All anglers finishing in the top 40, which will be the new Day 3 cut line, will receive checks. And speaking of the Classic, now let's look at those particulars for the Classic and Angler of the Years. Back to the press release. The Bassmaster Classic champion will still earn $300,000. The top 11 stays exactly the same. A graduated pay scale will reward 12th through 25th place, and every Classic competitor will receive a check. Now, as for Progressive Bassmaster Angler of the Year, the top prize for Angler of the Year remains at $100,000. Second place has increased to $50,000, with 3rd through 5th also receiving checks. We talk in terms of sponsor dollars, and they're very important to Elite Series anglers. And now think of it, the sponsor dollars, instead of going towards entry fees, stay in your pocket now. I mean, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's a game changer. Sponsor dollars vary depending on the angler. A rookie probably not going to have the sponsorship relationships that someone that's been in the sport for a long time would have. And having success usually means you're going to have more sponsorship dollars available. But there were a fair amount of anglers fishing the Bassmaster Elite Series that did not have that $45K coming in from sponsors. So they had to just dig into their own bank account. I hate to say it, but it's true. In some cases, credit cards, that sort of thing. But that burden will not be there on the anglers and on the anglers family. Here's one thing that I have known for quite a long time. There are a lot of anglers that are potentially good enough fishermen to compete on the Bassmaster Elite Series, but not able to come up with the 45,000. So their dream is canceled before they could ever even try to pursue it. But this will alleviate that, and this will give anyone a chance to go try to compete at the highest level with no entry fee and not have that burden on their family.
Yeah, they laid it out pretty straightforward. I'm curious. I'll have to do some research and find out, Scotty. Obviously, could I be fishing it next year? Like, what do you have to do to get in now? And obviously, it's going to be based on what you've accomplished, I would think.
I'd have to agree, and that part of it I don't know as well as some folks that follow it. Like, as I said, and Steve has already offered up an opinion. My personal opinion: it will not last. No way those money payouts will continue to be supported by the sponsors. But that's my opinion. At the end of the day, I'm not necessarily up on how one necessarily qualifies. But at the end of the day, here at CFN, OFC, what have you, we're all about making things available and giving opportunity to anglers to participate. This is an elite series. So as much as the CFN Fish Off or any other derby or what have you is kind of a fun tournament, the elite series, it's a business. And I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I'm not really sure. Maybe I know all of the facts, but if you are not having to put out, and as he mentioned, there's a lot of folks on the elite series that have to pay out of their own pocket because
I told you the stories about that with guys, just right up to here, right? I think one of the key things they mentioned there was when he was reading that was that it was sustainable moving forward. So they probably have long-term commitments from the people putting the money in.
Yeah.
And that's the reason it'll work.
And I will say, it doesn't take away from those who do have to qualify. You do have to pay for those qualifiers. So those entry fees, hopefully the sponsors will still be able to alleviate some of that stress on you. But once you get there, it's kind of like making the pros, right? If you're a pro athlete and you get drafted or you somehow get signed to a team, they're paying you now to be there. And of course, we're not at that stage yet. But the fact that there's no more entry fees, at least you're not having to pay to play.
Yeah, and the cost of practice and pre-practice is monster. Like a lot of these guys, I know young Cooper there when he was, he spent a couple of years there going up and down because he knew there was lakes they were going to go to that they weren't using or whatever. They sort of assume they're on the horizon. So, he'd take 10 days and go to that lake and fish his little butt off. To learn the lake. So when he got there, it wasn't you're not standing there with looking at the map on the unit and saying, where should I start? These guys have plans. People don't realize the hours and days and time that they spend researching and having a list of things that they have to do. It's not just like drive the boat around and go, oh, this looks like a good spot. And that's not what this is about, because you last about 15 seconds doing that.
So I will say this, and of course, without those buy-ins from the anglers, when you have to pay to participate. Again, it's coming out of Bass's pocket because at the end of the day, the money's got to come from somewhere. Now it's coming out of Bass, and of course, all their sponsors. There is this, I would say, it's gathering steam that the payouts are going to be lower. Not necessarily from what I saw with the press release, but
the lower end of payouts are lower, yeah.
So the lower end isn't going to get the payout. Now, with everything that's costing what it is, Jim, obviously that's not a great thing to attract anglers, but does it heat up the competition? Does it make you work any harder? Like, is any of that a factor?
Well, yeah, you definitely have to work harder because now there's no hoping to come 50th and get a check for 10 grand like you used to get. Like the standing joke between Gussie and me was every time he made the cut, I'd send him a note and say, "Hey, can I borrow 10 grand?" That was the standing joke. Well, that's not like that anymore.
Right.
Not like that anymore. It is going to be a little bit top heavy, but it means that maybe it's going to make them a little hungry. It's going to make them struggle a little bit more. You won't be eating steak every night unless you already have a lot of money. A lot of these guys that fish in these events are they may not be rich, but I should say they may not be wealthy, but they're certainly not worried about where their next truck is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's that type of thing, eh?
When it comes to pro sports, a lot of
like Steve just said, I know the bottom is like $500.
Yeah, a lot of these pro sports obviously have TV contracts, and I would imagine that there is some kind of TV contract with BAS. I'm not sure what it is and to what value. Perhaps these contracts now start to rise in order to compensate. Like
that's like I said, when he used the word there, what was it? I just forgot. I just said it. Sustainable in the future. They already know they've got the money coming. And if it lasts 10 years and then they have to change it again, that's what they'll do, It's that type of thing. I mean, people don't realize how big a business this is. Bassmasters. It's monstrous. It's humongous, eh? And these people are not dummies that are running this. They got I'm sure they got bean counters that could outfish you and me put together. So they don't just understand the financial end of it. They understand the fishing part too, two of them together. Now, right now, it wouldn't take much to outfish me, but you know what I'm saying, though.
100%.
These people, it's not like a big giant company that has the accounting floor. It's not that big, but I'm sure the guys all have to fish. They all fish. They all understand the world of fishing. Just through the whole company, it's just fishing is the thing, eh? And I'm sure that they all know, and they know what goes on in the fishing world. They understand how retail sales affect what they're going to be getting. They understand this. They understand that. The whole thing, the expenses of traveling around with all this stuff, because it's not just the elites. It's the whole business. It's the opens. Right. all the local stuff that they do, the kayak stuff, everything. It's monster money.
Yeah.
And money begets money, eh?
Oh, true. And when you hear some of the payouts that were back in the day to what they are now, they certainly have come a long way when it comes to generating money and making money available to their competitors and, of course, their winners. But I don't know. Some might say that this is a step backward from that pace that they had been setting, because, of course, as you mentioned, as Steve just said, some of the lower, you're only getting a $500 payout, which really at the end of the day doesn't pay for a lot, especially if you're fishing.
Pays for your food.
That's it. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know what the sentiment is for all the anglers, but for those who are paying out of pocket for these entry fees, this has got to be a huge relief and great news for them. But I don't know. I'm torn.
It's like anything else. It'll wash in the end. It'll be a year of probably with a bit of turmoil, and then it'll just all settle in and be what it is. It'll be the new way of doing it. I mean, how many times have they changed these things? When they raised the entry fees and they went to 45 grand, people said Bassmasters is nuts. They'll never last.
Yeah.
They're bigger than ever, and they're more financially stable than ever too. That's why they're doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's just something different.
Well,
the bottom line on the whole thing, Scotty, is that the people that are fishing are the ones that this is going to affect. That I've seen so many guys on social media yapping about it. Like they never won $10 in a local derby, but they're on there being experts about the payouts, and it's going to sink them. FLW is going to crush them, and this and that, and the next thing and everything else. And it's just I don't know it, so why would you know it? And I've been in it all my life. Like I said, it's big business.
Mm-hmm.
It's It's just like football. It's no different. There's the big giant top end of it, and then there's the players at the bottom.
Well, it's funny because football, for instance, and everyone knows my love for college football. They are now paying these athletes. It's not to say that they didn't before. They were just unique ways on how they were able to attract the talent.
Should have.
And some will say that this is a great thing for the athletes that they're getting this money, and I will say it's good now. I really want to see what it looks like in 5 years. When you're paying these college athletes, and you're being able to entice them, are you going to get the New York Yankees of the world? Are you going to get these teams that monopolize because they have deep pockets, all the talent, and really is that what we want for the league? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know what you say. I know. I watched the thing where the guy was talking about it, and he was talking about Michigan, and for an example, and that stadium and everything that they do. And the guy said, like the money that they make on that stadium supports the whole athletic thing for the school, plus. So, why shouldn't these guys get a couple of bucks? And the gals, I guess there's other things too now, probably where they're getting paid.
I do see both sides. I'm just concerned of what the playing field, pardon the pun, is going to look like in 5 or 10 years. Are you going to have, as I said, these elite teams that are part of the SEC, Big Ten, what have you, with these deep pockets and all these boosters that pump all kinds of cash into the school, teams that are going to be reigning, champions for decades, because no one can
probably give some of the NFL teams a run for their money.
No, that is true as well.
They'd have the guys just a little bit below B in there, yeah.
Bass is a business. They're going to make more money from this somehow. The anglers took the hit on this one. And Sean, I have been hearing this from a few people, of course, as it gets shared on social media.
Well, a lot of them are happy. A lot of them aren't.
Yeah.
And you can't please everybody all the time. So it's,
So I guess my take then is, Jim, if there are people that were happy the way it was before, is it equal now without without the entry fees? Is it the same number of people not happy as they were when they did have to pay? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is you're never going to make everybody happy, but at the end of the day, is it similar now that there are no entry fees to the number of folks that were happy the way it was?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Scotty. I know the guys. I've talked to several guys about it, and the ones I've talked about it have been pretty positive about it. But they're guys that have been on the winning end.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in that top 20, top 30 a lot of times.
Yeah.
And they've won other big things. You look at the Johnsons last year; they won well over $400,000 between them. Gussie won over $400,000. Is that going to be like that this year? And this is it, So that's when things like this will, maybe they'll start having a slight change of opinion about it all.
Right.
It's hard to say, buddy.
It is. And Steve, this brings up, of course, a point that a lot of folks are talking about.
Well, they've been coming anyway. Every year there's 2 or 3 big ones. Jason Christie was the best of all. When they had the ads with him that said he had unfinished business. And the first year back, he won an elite tournament at last. And the second year, he wins the Classic. Like, that's just like, how could Bass orchestrate? You couldn't orchestrate that.
Hollywood couldn't write a better script.
It was. Yeah, exactly. That's, what it is,
100%.
It's so cool. And Gussie told me, because they're roommates, he told me he was just absolutely driven. Yeah, he came back with something to prove that he could play on both sides. He did it.
True enough. Did get a question from Mitch, and it's actually an interesting question. I've had some negative feedback on taking a pic with sturgeon and releasing it immediately. Wonder what your and Big Jim's thoughts are, or even the guests for that matter. So Mitch is up in an area, Jim, if you don't know, along the Matagami, where you're actually allowed to catch sturgeon and take pictures of it with the intent, of course, releasing it right away. At the end of the day, Mitch, there's a lot of folks out there that have very strong opinions about this. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. A lot of it's going on as we speak. It's really not something that Jim or I really want to weigh into. But at the end of the day, if you're not breaking any rules and you're not
Yeah,
breaking
I
any
mean,
laws,
if you're allowed to catch those fish there, and you're allowed to take them out of the water, some areas you're not, and you're allowed to take them out of the water. So you take a picture of it and you pop it. Look, you're right at the water. Are you in the water? It's hard to tell. But I mean, boom, they're back in the water. And I mean, let's face it, sturgeon and catfish, they're pretty hardy fish. You could bring them home, get a picture taken, not in a tank, bring them back, let them go, they'll swim away,
mm-hmm.
They're not like bass and smallmouths and walleyes and other fish like that. They're just not as tough, it's not as tough as a sturgeon or catfish or something like that, or a carp. God, you catch a carp, throw it up on the bank, you come back next weekend. Oh, I forgot I left that there. Put it back in, it swims away. Like they're just tough fish, eh? But I don't see anything wrong with that.
If you're not breaking the rules, Mitch, if
you're holding the fish horizontal, and then people get in, well, it's morals. Yeah, but you caught a fish, you're holding on a bank for 30 seconds and you let it go. It's I mean, if the rule said you can't do it, then I'm all for it. The rule says you don't do it, and we solve the problem, and we don't have to have 5,000 people fighting on Facebook over it.
Exactly.
Saying, oh, there should be a rule that says you're allowed to have it out of the water for 15 seconds. So what do you have to do? Hold the fish in the water, have a stopwatch on your neck, look like Flavor Flav there with the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Flick the stopwatch, take the fish out, count the 15 seconds, and throw it. No, it's just a quick fish like that, a quick picture like that. Away you go.
And Mitch, I'll be honest with you, like there's it's for that reason alone that there are certain species of fish I do not like to target, muskie being one of them, simply because I am so worried that I'm doing harm to that fish the minute I bring it out of the water. I know a lot of charter captains keep it in the water. You had mentioned one on the Ottawa River that
Mark Thorpe.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark Thorpe he's the barrel trauma king. He's done more, stuff like to help muskies over that bit, with the heat and them coming up from deeper water and stuff like that and everything about not bugging them. Mm-hmm. He has days where he cancels guiding because of the temperature. If the air temperatures are high and if they do catch a fish, it stays in the water. The number of pictures that Mark sends me, because he doesn't post, it turned into such a mess. He doesn't even post on Facebook anymore about his catches. He caught fish this year that were 57, 58 inches. Oh, wow. Yeah, like they're world class. They're as big as they come. You know what I mean? Wow. He's got pictures of them. He sent me pictures of them holding them in the water with his client. The two of them sitting there in the water holding the fish. The fish is almost 5 feet long. That's like, for him, that's a once or twice a year, maybe. Mm-hmm. I know guys that's every weekend, but it's one of those things. And it's good for the fish. They're not breaking the law. You can take them home and some areas you could take them home and cook them if you wanted, depending on the size limit.
100%. I think there's the shock factor too. There's the excitement factor, and of course we might be able to have strong opinions about muskie and sturgeon for that matter. But I think of some of these young anglers. We were all there. When you caught that bass and it was flopping all over the dock. Sure, it wasn't being handled properly, but we were so excited. I mean, you're 5, 6, 7 years old. Yeah. Like I don't know how we can be critical.
Hey, Scotty, the number of fish in my life that I've had. We had a walleye years ago in Quinte. I want to say it was probably would have come close to 16. And we got it in the net and everybody freaked. And it was my number, so I got to reel it in. So, you know what I mean? So anybody could have caught it. And I got the fish. I picked up the fish. I said, let them pop a few quick ones of me with the fish. I got it cradled, like up. I got it like that. I said, pop a few quick ones of me. And he says to me, turn more so the sun's in your face, because it was at my back. And I turned like this with the fish. I was right at the edge of the boat. And it started to go wild, and I just went like this. And just back into the Bay of Quinte with it. And I remember one of the guys told me the look on your face when you threw that fish back in, just heaved it over the side, because I didn't want it to fall on the floor.
Yeah.
Because if that fish would have died, I'd never have been right.
See, and this is the thing. Yeah.
You know, see, I talked to Tim Allard the other day about a little muskie him and I caught on the St. Lawrence River one day. And I caught a little tiger muskie. It was probably 10 pounds, 12 pounds. And it was the most beautiful little fish that you could imagine. It's the only tiger I've ever seen with the marks right up over the head. In fact, we have the picture because we used it on a rate card for just fishing once of me holding it all beaming and smiling.
Yeah.
Before I was almost in tears because it died.
Oh.
It just died. We caught it. I caught it on a spinnerbait. It jumped twice and pulled it to the side. I grabbed it, brought it out, took the spinnerbait out of its mouth, held it up for a couple of photos. I put him back in the water. He goes, and he's gone. He was out of the water for 15 seconds. Plus, it was like the end of September, so it's not that hot or anything anymore. And I mean, it was just like catching a 1.5-pound bass almost, the amount of time. And I look over, I see something on the surface, and I went over it. It was dead. It just died. It was what it was going to do. And I spent like an hour with that fish, pulling it with I was on my belly, hanging out the front of the boat, holding it by the lip, pulling it with the electric motor to get the water to go over it so it was getting good breathing, not pulling it back and forth, which Bruce Stuffs will tell you can be iffy. Not always the best thing to do. The water ain't meant to go in the back, so
Exactly.
you got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
If you're just waving it around, it's one thing. But I see these guys and they got the fish in it. It looks like they're doing
wood with it.
Beating the water to a froth with the fish. The fish, the fish is looking up. Okay, I can breathe. Give me a break. But I pulled this fish all over this bay, and eventually I let him go, and he was looking darker. He had looked darker and all looked good and everything else. And then about, I don't know, a half an hour after, I circled around the outside of the weed bed again, and there he was upside down. And I wanted to keep him because a buddy of mine is a really wonderful taxidermist. Not advanced class, but he's really good. And I thought that would be really cool for him to have that amount. I could phone the game warden and say, I got this fish, it's dead, because it was undersized. Wow. It was in season, but it was undersized. And I just thought to myself, no, the crayfish can have a snack tonight, or the seagulls or whatever. But I see, I'm talking about that fish right now. That was 15 years ago. Yeah. Just killed me to kill that fish. Yeah. And I told you about having the crappies in the bucket here a couple of years ago. Tammy wanted to have fish for, so I said, I'll go, top fisherman. I'll go down the back and catch a few. I go down, I get up my little floating crankbait there. Boom, boom, boom. When I just happened to hit them. It was in April. And I had like 6 in the bucket, and I kept them all about 10 inches long. There's a couple in there that were like 13, but I threw them back in. And I'm looking in the bucket, and I'm just about to go up, and I go, oh shit. I just tilt the bucket, and they all just, because the water's right at the top of the seawall at that time of the year, they just all every direction, But I'm just like that. I don't know. I just I'll keep the odd walleye. Like I'll probably be out with Captain Greg here in November at the end of the month, and if we catch some 2 or 3 pounders, I'll keep them. But I just assume put them back in. We need all the fish back in the water we can get, and I'm not begrudging anybody a fish meal. But when I see these guys with, they got to bring home, like 50 perch Sunday, 50 perch Saturday, 50 perch Monday. They're over the limit. If the game warden never went to their house, they'd shoot them, and then in the next year they throw half of them out in the freezer because their freezer burned and it's time to go fishing again. I've seen so much of that.
Yeah. And
I talked to the game warden here a lot, the CO, and he said 2 or 3 times a year, right around where you are. He said, we get guys with like 100 pounds of fish in their freezer, all frozen up. They can't identify it, nothing, and stuff like that. So it's you need to be a little more respectful of the resource. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, 100%. And to one another, Sean, you make a great point. It's just it's crazy. Imagine. And I know what you meant to say at a 5-year-old about proper fish handling and expect them to fall in love with the sport. At the end of the day, it goes without saying that, how we conduct ourselves sometimes in terms of the criticism we have of other anglers or perhaps their techniques or their fish handling. We're making it easy for the aunties. You know, when you take the social media to denounce somebody for whatever it is that they've done in your eyes wrong,
all over that.
yeah, the aunties love that. We're doing is making it easy for them. So yeah.
Scotty, the year before you came for the first time here to my kids' derby on the dock right out back here,
yeah,
there was about a 4-pound, well, not 4. If I had to put it on if I just had to guess, I'd say it was 4, but if you put it on a scale, it was probably like 3.6.
Okay.
So there's this beautiful female largemouth, and she's watching the nest. And she's just, you know how many panfish are on that dock. Like, you know, we have kids catch 75. There's a ton of them there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got a piece of coroplast about this big with a big arrow pointing toward it. And I wrote on the sign, so I forget exactly what I wrote. I said, "Hi, I'm Mrs. Largemouth. I'm taking care of my eggs. Don't dare come near me or Big Jim will come and get you."
Wow.
And I've got that one screw with a washer to hold it to the dock. So the kids can go, the fish is right on the bed right there. I could have probably reached in and got it. The water is like this deep. I could have probably grabbed the fish off the bed with the back, like across the back of the head. That's right there, right? And there's people there and they're showing their kids and they're talking and everything else. And it's just so cool for them to see it. Next thing, here's some nitwit trying to catch it.
Wow.
I put the run to him. He wasn't there with a kid or nothing. He just come down. I'm just going to catch that fish. You know?
Wow.
The OPP guy came over to me and said to me, "I'm so happy he left." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I was going to make an example in front of a lot of people."
Wow. Tony,
he's standing on top of the sign. He's got a plastic worm. Bass season closed.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't help stupid. And Tony, you're right. And you know what? I was gonna bring your prints up this weekend, but now the truck's full. No, I'm just kidding. 100% right.
Tape to the side and hope for rain.
Jim, as always, my friend.
Tony?
Yeah, our hour has surpassed, and there was a lot that we discussed, a lot that we talked about. As I said, I really value your input because you've been there, you know, and you know, with a lot of things that perhaps we might be experiencing that are new to us, or you know, areas that we have not been, roads we haven't been down. You perhaps have, and you give a perspective that we truly appreciate, dude. And
I appreciate it. You know, it's just too easy to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And you know, in most cases, it's just too easy.
Amen.
You know? Like it's what it is. Just like, and you know, if you make a mistake with a fish and it dies, don't beat yourself up over it. Don't be a Big Jim. Like, you know, I'll think about that fish now for the rest of the night. I'll go watch a TV show with Tammy here or something, and that fish will be in my coconut. I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night screaming, holding an X-Acto knife to my neck. No.
All right, well, don't do that. Don't do that. As Tony says, take care.
Good, Tony.
Yeah, all the best, my friend. And again, we thank you so much for your time.
I will catch a fish next year.
Oh, let's.
I said it's so funny because I tell my buddies and they say, "So why didn't you just sit in the chair and catch about 15 pounds off the dock?" I said, "You didn't post any pictures of you catching fish off the dock this year." I said, "No, I haven't been down. I've just been around. There's been so many things I've been doing with family and everything." Eh? So, yeah, it's what it is.
Right on.
I'm ready.
All the best, Jim. We've got
be safe.
We have Lords coming up right after a word from our sponsor. You have a great night, Jim.
Always.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
There he is, the one and only Lawrence Gunther. How you doing tonight, my friend?
Oh, man, I'm juggling balls here, buddy. Juggling balls, trying to line up all the tradespeople for our Bluefish Exploration Center before the snow flies. You know, we got things to do up there. Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so give us an update. Give us a recap of where we're at and how much still has to get done before that snow starts to fly? Because I can imagine the pressure must be on.
Oh yeah, like once the snow flies, the road 3 kilometers, the last 3 kilometers of the road to get to our gate is no longer plowed, and our 500 feet of driveway is no longer plowed. So any deliveries at that point it become not going to happen until the spring. So just in the last week, we've had the siding delivered, we've had the windows delivered, we've had the spray foam insulation installed. We've had the 2 new bunkies delivered on site. So we've got some installation work to do, and we've got the wood stove up there to be installed. So I'm lining up the installers, and everything has to be finished and sealed up right before the snow flies, and then we can get the interior wood, all the pine for the interior of the cabin has to be brought in. And then we can work on that over the winter months, because we can snowmobile in there or snowshoe in there and just fire up the wood stove and work on that stuff into the spring and get the inside done. So that's where, but I'll tell you this funny story about the bunkie delivery. Can I share that? Should I share
100%,
that?
yeah.
Oh, so the bunkies are 21 feet long and 10 feet wide and 10 feet high. So I called the first towing service and he said, sure, no problem. Then I send me the details. I send the details. I check the next day. Did you get the details? Yeah, but there's a problem. We don't do wide loads. I go, oh. So then I call the guy who built me the bunkies, and he said, oh, you should try this Bristol Towing. He said they do work for us all the time. He's in charge of the trucks for Hydro Ottawa. So I said, I know Bristol Towing. They're stowing our boats for us this winter. So I call the guy up there, and he goes, yeah, no problem, Lawrence. We can go get those bunkies for you. So Friday, the first bunkie comes, and I hear the truck showing up at the end of the driveway. And I said, come on, we got to get up there and help them get down the driveway, because it's just all pine trees. And my wife's convinced it's not going to come down the driveway because of the pine trees. And so we get up there, and he's backing down the driveway. And so we said, no, you can't back down. It's like 500 feet at least. You're not going to make it. And all the trees have to twist around. And the bunkies loaded on backwards. So the door is facing backwards instead of the front of the truck. And you can't spin a 20-foot bunkie around on the gravel pad. It's got to go in one way and one way only. So I said, okay, this is a problem. I said, can you drop it here on the road and then reload it the other way? And he goes, the road's too narrow. So we went to the boat launch.
No way.
And at the top of the boat launch, it's quite wide. So we dropped the bunkie there, and then he reloaded it the right way. Then he came down, and he takes the corner, and I hear a crunch, and I go, oh, I heard metal crunch. And that's the roof. So I got a little roof damage, about 6 inches of crunch on the roof to fix now. And we get it down there. We get it right on the spot. Boom, it's unloaded. It's on the patio stones. It's perfect, except for the little crunch on the metal on the roof, but that's fine. We're very happy. Otherwise, it made it through the trees, right? We're talking like 11.5 feet wide, 15-foot high load on a tandem axle tow truck with a tilt bed. And he made it through all these pine trees and around the twists and turns and got it in there. Just wonderful. So I said, what about the next one? He goes, well, I'll go get it and load it up, but I'm not coming back tonight. It's going to be dark, and I'm not doing this in the dark.
No
and
way.
I said, when will you come back? And he said, Sunday. I said, well, tomorrow's Saturday. You can't. He said, no, tomorrow's my day off. And I said, if we're not here, is that a problem? He goes, no, I know what to do. So Saturday morning, my wife and I hook up the garbage trailer, and we're on the way to the dump. And we're going down the gravel road, and there's the tow truck on the side of the road with a bunkie on it, and it's not moving. So we stop, and my wife's looking. There's no one behind the wheel, and it's just sitting there on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere in the bush kind of thing. So I said, go see if the motor's hot, if the motor's warm. So she gets out, she goes over, and then she walks around the truck. She comes back. She goes, yeah, the motor's still warm, and there's a dead bear beside the truck.
No.
And I said, what? So I get out of the truck, and I walk over, and I can hear the radiator clicking, and I think, oh my God, this guy hit a bear. He hit his head on the windshield. He knocked himself out. He had a heart attack. What's going on? And so I start yelling up. I said, hello, hello, hello. And then we hear this, oh. And I go, oh my God, he's seriously hurt. And he goes, just a minute. And he opens the door, and he climbs down, and he goes, I was just having a nap.
Oh, jeez.
So Friday night must have been a good night, right? So
holy Hannah.
And I said, what's with the dead bear? And he goes, what dead bear? I said, the one right beside your truck. So he
boy.
on the passenger side of the truck. He goes, oh, I didn't see that. he didn't hit it. He just stopped beside it and had a nap.
What in the world? Oh, Sean, this sounds eerily familiar to yet another episode of Dipshit Outdoors, coming to rest at a dead carcass. Holy man, what are the chances of that?
What's the odds? I mean, there's dead animals up and down that road all the time, right? You know, the eagles are always there picking at something. And, but, you know, and we always see animals on that road. Like, you name it. Bears, wolves, deer, moose, marten, everything. We see it running around. Well, foxes, raccoons, porcupines. Every time we drive that road, there's animals. But so anyways, I said, look, we're just on our way to the dump. I said, but we'll turn around and follow you in. He goes, oh no. He said, I need more to sleep. He said, you go to the dump. I'm just going to sleep here. We come back. He's not there. We're just coming up to our driveway and he's coming down and no bunkie. He's dropped the bunkie on the spot. And so we give him we bought him a sandwich in town, got a bottle of Coke and gave him some cash, a big, nice tip. And he was very happy. And he said, no, it went in fine. He said, you had it well marked. And, you know, after yesterday, I knew I could do it myself. So he just did it. And so he went and had a look. One more little dent in the roof of the new one.
Wow.
But they're in. They're in.
That's awesome. That is so good.
Yeah.
Jeremy's brought up an interesting point. I wonder if a CFN meetup can be done with all of us helping out and doing a lot of the work, you know, for what you're hoping to erect. I could see a work weekend in the near future.
What I need is we need to. There's no maps of the lake, and it's got a lot of structure, and I'd love, you know, once we get the boats back up there, and the docks in, and is to get, you know, some guys who know what they're doing on making maps, right? Mm-hmm. And then just get out there and make some maps and make maps that, you know, when we hire our staff, they can say, okay, here's this spot on the lake says it's perch. This spot on the lake says it's walleye. This spot on the lake says it's bass. This spot on the lake says it's lake trout. And then you know, and then they're numbered almost, and we can just make a map and we can say, look, you're going to take these kids to spot number 3 and you're going to fish with these rods and these lures and these baits for perch. Or you're going to go to spot number 2 and you're going to fish for lake trout and you're going to use these rods and these lures, you know? That's the kind of, you know, that kind of research of just documenting that lake and mapping that lake, mapping the hazards, you know, where you can't drive and the spots where the fish are. That would be a great help to have some people up there who know what they're doing with technology to take our boats and go out there and map that lake. I mean, we got a little bit of information from our neighbors who have had a fish camp up there since 1906, and they've got a little hand map that they've drawn over the years. So that's a starting point.
That's cool. Well, I dare say it would be like twisting a rubber arm to put us up there to do something like that. I will say. What species of fish are on this lake? It sounds like there's quite a few.
Lake trout, pike, white suckers, perch, sunfish, smallmouth and largemouth bass, and that's it. I don't know if there's walleye. There's a river nearby, and you can hear the shoots from the river when the wind's not blowing. You can hear the shoots at night from the river, and it's got walleye. We've been trying. My kids and have been taking their time off and going over there and figuring out where the walleye are, and suckers. They didn't know what a sucker was. They caught them up there. But so there's that. And there's some other bodies of water where there's trout, brook trout and things like that. So there's lots of water bodies in the area, and I know nothing about them, but there's trails going everywhere, ATV trails, side-by-side trails, you know.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, you had me at walleye, Lawrence. I can guarantee you might find me up there next year.
Well, that would be great. That would be great. You know, if you bring up, if you could get a handful of CFNers to come up and just come on up and bring your savvy and your knowledge and experience and spend 2 or 3 days just mapping that lake would be a fantastic, because we don't want to have people going out there driving boats and hitting rocks and, you know, and having to start from scratch and figure out where the fish are. It'd be great if we had some intelligence, you know?
100%.
There you go.
No,
Yeah.
Tony's asking a question that I actually don't know. What's the closest city to this facility?
Fort Collonges. It's 40 minutes away.
Fort Collonges.
Yeah.
Spell that for us.
Colounge. Colounge. Collonges. Yeah.
So
Fort Collonges.
Cologne, like you spell cologne.
Yeah, and it's near Mansfield.
Okay.
Mansfield, Pontefract.
Interesting. Right on.
Yeah.
Now, a species of fish that you did not mention, this is a very, very interesting segment that was shared to me by George Morgan. And I'll tell you, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, of course, we hear negativity about our First Nations folks, and this is not this. This is such a feel-good story in regards to sturgeon and the unfortunate decline of sturgeon within Lake Nipissing. But there is a First Nations group up there that is doing some fantastic work, and this biologist, we're hoping George, I know, is going to reach out to her and see if we can get her on. But I'll tell you, a wealth of information when it comes to sturgeon, but I'm sure all species of fish. But folks, this is a great video. I'd love for you to just sit back, grab yourself a bite, pour yourself a drink, because this is well worth a watch. And I'm, you know what, this is right up your alley too, Lawrence. I know you're going to really appreciate this. So,
I love sturgeon.
Right on.
In the deep waters of Nipissing lives an ancient species of fish whose ancestors shared the same waters with the dinosaurs. We call this spirit being Mne. When I was younger, I was walking down to the dock. I must have been like maybe 8 years old, and I just seen this like giant shark. And I remember like jumping back and like thinking like, oh my God, there's like a shark in this lake. And my cousin like was behind me and he started laughing. He just said, no, that's a lake sturgeon. So that was my very first experience with a lake sturgeon. Preview. I just love the way they look. They're so docile. There's just something about them that I feel connected to, kind of like I have to look after them. I have to be the person to speak for them because they don't have the words and they can't speak for themselves. Like the Anishinaabe, meh, or freshwater lake sturgeon have been affected by many changes caused by colonization, habitat, or environmental destruction and resource extraction. As resilient as they are, these fish, who have played such a central role in the ecosystem of Lake Nipissing and in our culture, are facing extinction. Mne lived in harmony alongside our ancestors for millennia. The sturgeon clan is one of many governance clans respected by the Anishinaabe. Our elders say that Nipissing people have always relied on lake sturgeon year-round as a food source. Pre-colonization, we harvested meh with spears and nets or by setting snares along our shores. Not only did we boil, bake, and smoke lake sturgeon, we enjoyed sturgeon eggs. Meh was also recognized as a special medicine eaten by our women in their third trimester of pregnancy to provide a rich source of omega-3 fatty acids to both mother and child. Not so long ago, members of our community could watch sturgeon jumping and slashing along the shore right in front of homes in Garden Village. Juveniles could be seen as they followed the older adult sturgeon towards their annual spawning site below Sturgeon Falls. My aunt, her siblings, and friends remember this clearly from their childhoods. Jumpers range from 50 to 200 pounds. Jumping sturgeon are no longer seen by members of our community and have not been seen jumping for more than 50 years. Beginning in the late 1800s, settler populations proceeded to decimate Lake Nipissing's lake sturgeon through commercial fishing. In 1991, the commercial sturgeon fisheries were finally closed on Lake Nipissing in a renewed effort to protect what was left of their greatly diminished populations began. Today, threats include dams, habitat fragmentation, invasive species, knowledge gaps, and not knowing or understanding the species. In 2005, Environment Canada classified lake sturgeon in the Nipissing watershed as a species of special concern. The following year, in 2006, lake sturgeon were reclassified as threatened. Later, in 2017, lake sturgeon became listed as endangered in all of the Great Lakes Upper St. Lawrence River populations to which our Nipissing watershed belongs to. Though resilient and protected, these ancient relatives of the deep waters experience serious, continuous threat. Anishinaabe have always been stewards of our waters, and our people still continue to try and protect sturgeon living in Lake Nipissing. The Department of Natural Resources at Nipissing First Nation is currently researching meh and their different habitats, especially their spawning areas. It is evident that without positive human intervention and care, lake sturgeon will no longer continue to exist. As part of our initiative, we have come to rely on citizen scientists, our valued community members, to help us keep our data collection as accurate as possible. If at any time you incidentally catch a sturgeon with a tag on it, please record or photograph the tag before returning the sturgeon back to the water. Then call Nipissing First Nation Natural Resources Department at 705-753-2050 to let us know of the sighting. This simple action supports the vitality of meh. Our waters are also their waters. Their future is our future. We have always been and will always be connected.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And to hear, during their third trimester of pregnancy that they would eat the eggs for that source of sustenance that they require. Like, just I don't know. To me, as I said, there is just something that I'm in awe with when it comes to the relationship between our First Nations and the water and land. And I don't know. I just think
it's special. And like on the West Coast, the First Nation community, the sturgeon have a special place in their culture because they feel their ancestors' spirits are reincarnated in the form of sturgeon.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. Absolutely, Mitch. Big incline on Matagami River for sturgeon since they've been reintroduced in the late 80s or early 90s. And yes, they are reintroduced. Oh, sorry. Can you can't hear me, Lawrence? Can you hear me?
No, you're cutting out. Are you there now?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Oh, I think we lost Lawrence. It may be his internet. Very, very cool story. Can we somehow get sturgeon restocked? You know what, Jeremy? I don't know if it's something that we can necessarily do. I know it can be done, but I don't know to what extent the work is involved. But at the end of the day, obviously, let's face it, it's all about money. But when it comes to the First Nations, they seem to have the ability to get stuff like this done. And Matagami is a perfect example of the walleye stocking that's done on that system. Truly, it's amazing. But at the end of the day, it's unfortunate to hear, and I really appreciate George sharing this with us, that we do have a species of fish that unfortunately is on the decline. But I guess, as I said, it is what it is, and hopefully they're able to figure it out. Can you hear me, Lawrence?
Yeah, I can now. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. At the end of the day, it's they're asking, is it something that we can do? Can we get sturgeon to be restocked? Can we set up hatcheries? I would like to say yes. I don't know who's going to do it and who's going to pay for it, but can it be done? Absolutely.
The Windsor Conservation Authority worked with their partners on the American side in the Detroit River, and they created some spawning habitat in about 3 feet of water using stones the size of your fist.
Really?
And they put cameras there. And once the habitat was there, the sturgeon used that habitat to spawn. They love spawning in sort of large gravel, kind of rocky sort of terrain. And they have pictures of sturgeon going up there and spawning in the Detroit River on this island that was they donated by 3M. They own the island. They said, yeah, go ahead, use that area, that peninsula there, that point. And it created some really successful sturgeon spawning habitat there. So it totally is possible. You know, we see them on the Ottawa River here all the time. Ice fishing, you catch them quite often. You know, you have tournaments and you're just sitting in your boat and all of a sudden a sturgeon just shoots out of the water, straight up out of the water, right beside you. You don't know why they're doing it, but they'll just do it over and over again. And some people say, oh, they're just trying to knock the lice off their body. But I think they're just curious. I think they're just doing it because they're looking around.
Yeah, it's quite possible. It's one species of fish I really don't know an awful lot about.
Yeah,
but yeah, their characteristics and you know, you talk about this torpedoing out of the water. It happens all the time. I mean, fishing for walleye down in the Detroit River, you see it on the regular when you're down there. They're constantly splashing around.
Yeah.
So there are areas where their populations are still quite healthy, and Matagami is a perfect example of that. That we're starting to see an increase, or I would say a good resurgence in their populations. But unfortunately, Nipissing is one area where they're still on the decline. But through protection and the work of the First Nations folks up there, we will see a rebound.
I was just checking the Quebec fishing regulations, and they said fishing zone, you're allowed to keep them. There's a size limit, but you can harvest them.
Now, before we went to air, Jim had asked, have you ever eaten sturgeon? I know I've had the caviar, but I've never actually eaten sturgeon, and apparently they're really good.
I'm told that you smoke them and they're delicious. I'm also told they have no bones. Like sharks, they have no bones. It's cartilage and muscle.
Interesting. Well, I never thought a shark would taste good, and boy, was I ever proven wrong.
It's like steak. Yeah.
It's a delicious fish.
We're the only people in the world that don't eat shark. The rest of the world eats shark except for Americans. Americans and Canadians.
Yeah. But I was blown away. It was a lemon shark, smaller shark.
Yeah.
They cut them into steaks, just like you said. Because of the cartilage.
Yeah.
Not a lot of bones in it, to say the least. And as I said, you cook them up in a steak format. Oof, it's actually really good.
Yeah. We had a commercial shark fishery on the east coast of Canada with a poigle shark, I think they call it, and I think on the west coast too. But they realized that they figured out, the commercial fishers figured out where they would do their spawning in the ocean, and they would go and net them there. And that's the only time they really schooled up and they could be caught. And within 3-4 years, the population was beaten down pretty bad. So they stopped the fishery. It just wasn't sustainable in Canada.
Well, Jim's just saying mako shark is offside good. I've seen it advertised in quite a few restaurants, especially down, Florida and the southern states. But I can't say the lemon shark was the only one that I've ever eaten. But again. To eat a sturgeon, I would never have thought of it. But when you talk about sturgeon, and it's interesting because someone had brought this to my attention back in the day, during the steam engine craze, like everything was steam engine. They were either building or at the final stages of the St. Lawrence Seaway. All of the steam engines, if they got low on coal, if they got low on wood, they would have piles of frozen sturgeon. That's how plentiful they were back then. And they would circumvent and use that frozen sturgeon as a means of burning because, of course, the fish is very oily and would give off the necessary heat in order to keep the steam engine running.
Can you imagine? What a waste.
I had no idea. Yeah. And I've seen pictures of them. I'd have to go back and find where I saw them, but piles like cordwood, like you'd pile wood at the side of the railway. They'd be firing these things into the back of the steam engine, and be a quick stop, and then they'd be on their way with frozen sturgeons.
Yeah, out on the Fraser River, they were back in the early 1900s. They would use steam engine driven winches to pull in the night lines in the morning. They would set the lines out with big hooks and chunks of meat, and they would use these steam powered engines to reel in these sturgeon. No fishing rod involved, and then they would just gut them, take the agro sacks out, and just leave them there on the shore as garbage. Yeah. And we're talking 15, 20 feet long fish, right?
Incredible. So, it bodes the question. And of course, we talk about this, when we're sitting around having a beer and a fire, or maybe we're at a retreat or what have you, or you're just sitting around with a bunch of buds. And you think, when it was back then, you talk about the number of sturgeon there would had to have been in the Fraser River.
Yeah.
In order to have, or at least use that kind of system where you've got a steam winch, dragging in all these fish. Mm-hmm. How many freaking fish were in that river back then? Like that, it just, I don't know. It makes you wonder, makes you ponder.
And these fish can leave the fresh water, go into the ocean, and swim down to the Columbia River, the mouth of the Columbia, and then go into the Columbia. I mean, they move around, right? We didn't know that until recently, until we started doing research. And it was Rick Hansen, man in motion himself, who loves fishing. He's the one that started this sturgeon fishery research on the lower Fraser River, in Vancouver, to tag the sturgeon. And I've been out on the boats there tagging them. And it's just amazing what we've learned because of that. Where they get around, how they get around, how long they live, how many times they've been caught. How fast they grow. The problem is they stop. The tags are expensive. It takes time, and you catch a lot of juvenile sturgeon. And a lot of these charter boat captains, they stop tagging the juveniles, the 3 and 4 footers, because they said, we're probably only interested in the big ones. We're tracking the big ones. They're the big mamas. And then these scientists started looking at the data and said, whoa, look, the young ones are disappearing. We're experiencing a real shortage of juvenile sturgeon. And it's just, we stopped tagging them because we didn't have enough. No one was giving people enough money to buy the tags to tag all the sturgeon. And no one was told you got to tag them all. So it's so important when you're relying on anglers to do community science. You got to get the instructions right. You got to make sure you give them the equipment that they need to do the job you're asking them to do. Otherwise, they're going to do the best job they can, but it may skew the results, right, of the science.
True enough. Great topic, as I said, George. Thanks so much for sharing that video.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it when I first sat down and watched it. It was just it's awesome. And as I said, the connection that our First Nations have with the land and the water and everything that inhabits either one is truly remarkable. And I tell you, we have a lot to learn. Speaking of learning, there is I shared it earlier, but of course I don't know if you want to call it a symposium, but it is an aquatic research partner workshop that is happening on December 9th from 8:45 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So it's a full day. It is in person at Carleton U in Ottawa.
In person and virtual.
And virtual on Zoom. I'm sure you have a take on this, or are you involved? Are you a speaker?
It's 25 scientists from a broad range of universities that Stephen Cook and his team have organized. Dr. Stephen Cook from Carleton University, Bass Hall of Fame, in numerous Bass Hall of Fames, International Game Fish Association Hall of Fame. I mean, our little Stephen Cook from Ottawa here is being recognized all around the United States with all these awards for the work he's doing. It's just amazing. So he's organized this one day, 25 presenters in one day. That's going to be just packed. And I got an invitation to come and hang out and meet these people. So I'm cranked about going out there. That's going to be good.
Well, I'm going to register myself. As I said, you still got lots of time. We will be posting it on CFN, so other folks that want to join in and participate and just tune in to hear so much information in regards to that area that is, in my opinion, doing very, very well when it comes to fish population and fish health. But I'd be intrigued to hear a little bit more of the science that goes into some of the findings. I find that just as intriguing as the actual numbers of fish. But yeah, very cool. Looking forward to that. I'm done, but I'm sure you're not. I'm sure you've got lots of news items that you want to share, so I will let you have the floor, my friend.
So I was at the Canada Centre for Inland Waters last Wednesday. It's in Burlington, Ontario. Apparently, if you look at this building from Google Maps, or Google Earth, I should say, you'll see a very rectangular shaped building with a ton of pipes sticking out of it.
Okay.
It's quite extraordinary. And you wonder, what the hell's going on with that, right? But you go inside, and we were having a day's meeting there. I'll get to you in a second. But we had the opportunity to take a tour and visit some of the laboratories and the research they're doing there, and the level of scientific, it's like amazing, absolutely amazing. You think you were in, the late state-of-the-art laboratories. Before you walk in, you have to step on a mat that's full of sort of disinfectant and clean the bottom of your feet. And you go into these laboratories, and they're full of walls, full of cases and windows with fish, thousands of mussels in one lab, another one, thousands of big head minnows, another one, thousands of snails. They're looking at all manner of interactions between the water, the environment, and the creatures that live in the Great Lakes, and trying to understand what's going on, and what's happening with this, and at a very scientific level. It's just amazing. Absolutely, beautiful. 600 people work there.
What?
Yeah, 600 people. And all doing research to understand the Great Lakes. They don't get enough credit. I talked to some, and I got some cards from them, and I said, "Look, you got to get you on the podcast. What you're doing is just amazing." And I won't give it away, but stay tuned for some pretty interesting interviews coming up. They even had a room, Scotty. You believe this? Because it's not far from Toronto International Airport and the U.S. border, Niagara Falls, that anyone trying to smuggle exotic animals across the border in or out of Canada, they'll have the part, whatever, seized, and they'll get tickets. So they had a room where all the seizures have been stored, and there's one man in charge of it all. And we go into this room, and it's just a room of horrors, right? Leopard skins and elephant tusks. I got to hold an elephant tusk. 6-foot elephant tusk. I'm holding it in my arms like a baby. It weighs 50 pounds. That's like a bag of cement. That's not small. That's not light. Can you imagine having 2 of those hanging off the front of your face?
No. And here's the other thing. Who thought they could cross the border with something like that?
I don't know. I don't know. They had a 9-foot baleen from these right whales that open their mouth and just cruise through the ocean with their mouth wide open, and they collect little tiny shrimp in these long, thin, sort of cartilage type structures. And what an amazing thing. First time they said, "No, it's right there on the wall." I thought I was touching some molding on the wall. They said, "No, that's it." I said, "Really?" I pulled it away from the wall. I go, "It is absolutely amazing." A little hairs on
as amazing as it is, it's just as equally troubling. Like
elephant feet and heads of all sorts of crazy animals, and turtle shells galore. Yeah, it's all there. A macabre collection, to say the least.
Oh, wow. Well, as interesting as it is, as I said, it's equally as troubling. And it's almost a feel-bad story as opposed to a feel-good story. But yeah, nonetheless, very interesting. But I look forward to hearing some of these interviews that you mentioned just before. That's very cool.
I talked to one guy. He studies what's growing underneath on the bottom side of the ice on the Great Lakes. When the lakes freeze over, what's growing on the underneath of the ice?
No way.
And this, I tell you, you wonder why you catch fish cruising just below the ice. Sometimes when you're ice fishing, you're fishing over 10, 20, 30 feet of water, and the fish are just, a foot below the ice cruising around. And what the hell's going on there? This guy, everything from the bottom all the way up, he explained the whole thing to me. I said, "Okay, here's my card. Contact me. We've got to get you on a podcast. I got a lot of people who want this information. I'm not going to give it away, but it's cool stuff. Why I was there is there's been some money allocated to do Great Lakes water quality research, and Bluefish Canada, in partnership with our one of our organizations that we started called the Great Lakes Fish Health Network, that we started that in 2019. We submitted a proposal to engage anglers to collect data on the water quality and other aspects affecting fish health in the Great Lakes. And we were told that we were the only people to submit a proposal that actually involved people on the water. All the other proposals came from environmental groups where they were on shore.
Interesting.
We were the only ones that said so our proposal, with 1 million anglers that go out on the Great Lakes every year, and a $9.5 billion fishing industry on the Great Lakes, and $9 billion of that is recreational. It's we've got a tremendous voice in this arena that we haven't been really exercising, that we've been left out of, or that we just haven't paid attention to. But we need to have that voice, and the one way to get that voice is through sharing our knowledge, right? We have charter boat captains going out there, and they're doing oxygen and water quality, in terms of turbidity, in terms of temperature, all sorts of data they're collecting on a daily basis. This is all really important information that can help scientists understand what's happening in the Great Lakes. So we want to get. It looks like we're going to be working with these scientists in helping them gather data through anglers.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And you know what? Perhaps maybe there was a time when we weren't asked for our opinion because they didn't necessarily want to hear it. It's nice to see we're kind of turning the page, and this citizen science is really starting to grow. It's really starting to take flight, and as I said, we see it all the time with Anglers Atlas, oh my Lord, I'm drawing a blank, but needless to say, citizen science is really starting to be an initiative that is growing in popularity, and the scientists themselves, the biologists themselves, look forward to that input as well. It makes it a lot easier when it comes to gathering information. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's the MyCatch app. I think
MyCatch. Thank you.
Yes, from the Anglers Atlas group.
That's right.
That's really helping researchers out in a big way. And Sean Simmons, who owns that project, it's a for-profit operation started by one guy, and he's just driven to make a difference, right? And it's incredible the steps he's been able to take over the years to move the goalposts on this, and it hasn't been easy for him. It hasn't been easy.
Well, it hasn't, and he's gonna slap me. He's gonna hate me for not being able to regurgitate the name off the back of my head. But I will say, having the luxury of sitting in and hearing the discussions amongst the group, you can tell there is an awful lot of work being done behind the scenes. That this was not just an idea. This was going to become a movement. Now, with any movement, there's reluctance, there's trust issues. There were concerns that were voiced by the anglers. As they are now starting to see, all of their information is not going to be available for public viewing. It is strictly being used for science, and some of the things that we're starting to see from that science down in the States primarily is truly remarkable. They're starting to learn things about their fishery they never knew about before. So very, very cool. And of course, when it comes to invasive species, having that kind of database where you can go on and have folks that are true anglers that are on the water 24/7, it seems, being able to provide them sort of a link to where the invasive species are starting to migrate and show up is truly remarkable, so that we can deal with it a lot sooner instead of them taking a stronghold in an area. Now that they know about it, there's ways to eradicate them. So, I mean, what is being done through this app and this group at Anglers Atlas is truly remarkable. So I'm glad you brought that.
Yeah, and it's just the start, right? It's just the start. I mean, Sean has been collecting the data. Other individuals have been collecting data. How do we get this data into some sort of common area where scientists can easily find it, and put 2 and 2 together, right? I mean, so everyone's holding a piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
And when we can bring these pieces together, we can say, oh, artificial intelligence might do the job. Maybe it will help us with this, but we still have to create the data. Artificial intelligence isn't going to go out there on a boat and take samples. It's up to us. Well, Jason might have something he's looking at, that's going to get him off the water and out of the cold. Yes. But yeah, for sure, these remote operated vehicles, right? I mean, but you still have to science. Scientists will tell you that we can do the science, but what science do you want us to do? Where do we want us to look? What do you want us to research? Otherwise, they're just scientists, and yeah.
Very cool. Do you have any other news articles you want to share with us?
Well, the mercury in the fish in the Great Lakes seems to have leveled off. It's
we talked about. I know, and it was funny because I did get some feedback in regards to that. Some folks were really intrigued to hear that it has plateaued, which they, a lot of people are concerned. Right, the level of pollution, the number of people that we have on the shores of our Great Lakes and our oceans, there's unfortunately an inherited concern for what we're doing to this water, and to hear that mercury, even though it's naturally occurring, we still as humans, find a way to keep adding it. It has leveled off, and that is great news.
Yeah. I think some not so great news is, we all know this, I think, is the ice is getting thinner and thinner every year and coming later and leaving earlier. And that's not just, the 11-year cycle. This is now going on 50, 75 years, this trend. And I think this is another one that us anglers, we're always measuring the ice. We're always going to our favorite ice fishing spots and saying, okay, when can we go fishing? And we know exactly when we stepped onto the ice and exactly how thick that ice was, and exactly when we had to get our stuff off the ice and stop going on the ice, and when it was breaking up. We know this stuff because anyone who ice fishes watches this like a hawk, right? Because our stuff depends on it, our lives depend on it, so I think here's another way we could really contribute to the science on ice thickness and coming and going. And I mentioned that, and people say, oh my God, that would be fantastic, right? Otherwise, you leave it to the scientists. And to be honest, there's just not a lot of scientists out there. I mentioned 600 at this one place, but they're looking at everything, across Canada. Might be one of the biggest collection of scientists in the world. I'm talking to a scientist tomorrow morning from the Lakes Research Center up in northwestern Ontario, and I'll learn more about that. So stay tuned for a podcast about that and the kind of science they're doing up there. But there's just, it's just not that many of them that they can do what we could do when it comes to monitoring this sort of stuff.
It's true, and I feel for those who truly look forward to a hard water season.
Yeah,
it's hard to even discuss it. It's hard to even bring up the subject, ice fishing, when tomorrow it's supposed to be 22 degrees. We set records on Halloween. So yeah, it is concerning because by now, I don't know about you, but I do remember as a youth that we would have probably our second snowfall by now. So, things are changing. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, snowmobiles, man. Who wants a snowmobile, right? I mean, that's it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Yeah,
it is. Well, Lawrence, as always, dude, I really appreciate your time, your knowledge, your input, and of course, the ability you have to talk about a number of subjects. I
get lucky. They say even a blind squirrel finds the odd nut.
Well, I use the metaphor that I'm a broken clock. At least I'm right twice a day.
Oh man, Scotty, as you get older, you realize how little you know, right?
It's amazing, and how much you've forgotten. I love those situations where it's like, oh, you're right. How did you remember that? Because I completely forgot. But yeah, no, it's awesome to relive some of the great things that we've done over the years. But Lawrence, as always, dude, really appreciate your input, and thanks so much for all you do.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the opportunity, buddy.
Right on. Have a great week, my friend.
You too.
Yet another great show. Thanks so much for all of you who joined us. At the end of the day, there was so much that we provided, and so much that even myself, I'm going to go back and just go over to make sure that I got it right. But yeah, it is. It's interesting times, and of course, with all of the input that our biologists and our science that are looking for from us as anglers. I really love this new term and this new movement called citizen science. I think it is something long overdue, but it is something that needs to be done. So very, very cool. Thanks to all who joined us. I want you guys to have yourselves a great week. And with all that great weather, as I mentioned, get out there and wet a line. Who knows for how much longer it's going to be this cool and or this warm, as I would say. But needless to say, I'd love to see you guys get out and enjoy it. Until next week, actually, we are going to have a power hour on Wednesday. I just got to reach out to Mark Penner to verify, but stay tuned for that. 8 o'clock, the power hour. We're going to be talking to Mark Penner, of course, all the wonderful derbies and tournaments that he organizes down in the St. Catharines area. So stay tuned to that. In the meantime, have yourselves a great week. Dave, take us away. Love you. All the best, guys.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.